historic event. Just for your knowledge, in the case of an emergency, there are exits on either corner. Right in front of you, there are exits to each corner in the back of the hall, and exits, of course, in the middle of the hall. There are accessible bathrooms on the first floor and other restroom facilities downstairs in either corner, okay? And if you need assistance with anything, a bunch of our students and staff members from our office are here to help you. They're all wearing badges, so if you need anything, please ask them. A quick note for all those in attendance tonight. Among the university's core values are the free exchange of ideas in a climate that is respectful and open to different perspectives. We expect everyone in attendance to give the candidates, the panelists, and their fellow audience members the respect they deserve. Now I'm pleased to introduce President David Dooley, the university's 11th president, who this year celebrates his 10th year leading the university during a remarkable period of achievement and growth. President Dooley.
Thank you, David, and thanks to each and every one of you who came out tonight to participate in this important election by being here this evening and hearing what our candidates have to say about the issues and their vision for the future of Rhode Island. We are delighted that the Public's Radio and the Providence Journal have chosen to work closely with us and selected this as a venue for this important gubernatorial debate. And I want to express my personal thanks to Elizabeth Harrison, who's the news director at Public Radio, and Alan Rosenberg, the executive editor of the Journal. I want to thank the candidates in advance. We appreciate their coming to the state's flagship university, a very appropriate venue for all the people of Rhode Island for this important event. These are very exciting opportunities for our students, and we have a lot of them here in the office in the building, and one of us is participating tonight from the 5-cent cigar. I want to remind you that this is not the only debate we will host. This is a very important one in which we all have a stake. The second one on Saturday, October 20th, is a Senate debate featuring Sheldon Whitehouse and Robert Flanders, and we invite you back all for that important debate as well. With that, it's time to proceed, and David, please take it away.
Thank you, President Dooley. And now I'd like to introduce Alan Rosenberg, one of the major contributors to this event tonight in the Providence Journal. He's the executive editor. Alan, have a few words for us, please.
Thank you, Dave. And on behalf of the Providence Journal and providencejournal.com, welcome. Thank you to the Public's Radio and the University of Rhode Island for co-sponsoring this debate, and to our publisher, Janet Hassan, who's here in the front row and who makes everything we do possible. And thank you for joining us tonight as we make our journalism three-dimensional, bringing the major candidates for governor together so you can hear them, see them, and judge for yourselves. I invite you to join us again on election night to follow the results as they come in. We'll have live town-by-town results on every race, up and down the ballot, in real time as the votes are counted, and statewide maps that will change as the precincts come in, so you can see where the winning candidates in key races are rolling up their margin of victory. Where can you find this? At providencejournal.com/results. Meanwhile, enjoy this evening's debate.
Thanks very much, Alan. And we're now going to throw it over to Ian Donis, who is from the Public's Radio, the new name of Rhode Island Public Radio. And he's going to take it from here and give us the ground rules for the debate tonight and make introductions as well. Thank you, Ian.
starting in about 9 minutes. I will ask in the course of our debate if you please refrain from any applause, cheering, or jeering. That will only take time away from the discussion and time away from your candidates. I ask you to respect that process, and we appreciate your being here. So we've got just over 9 minutes until we start, so thank you for being here, and I'll be back with you in about 9 minutes.
Good evening. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Good evening. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We've got a whole raft of farmers we talk to on this program. We got a corn farmer, a hog guy, a chicken guy, apples too, out of Washington State. And every time we've talked to them in the past couple of months about American tariffs on Chinese imports and then the retaliatory Chinese tariffs on American exports, a lot of which are agriculture, they say they need those exports to make the businesses work. And even when the White House announced back in August it was going to offer $12 billion in farm aid to mitigate some of those losses, they said they would much rather just have the market work. About a tenth of that $12 billion is going to go to buying crops that probably would have been sold to China. But now that food, well, kind of needs a home. KJZZ's Brett Jaspers reports that food banks across the country are getting a welcome but very sudden donation.
Dave Richens runs the United Food Bank in Mesa, Arizona. Every year, the center feeds almost 500,000 people in a 5-county area east of Phoenix.
We keep everything here about 10 degrees above zero, so it's nice and chilly in here.
Richens' walk-in freezer and coolers have a lot of space right now, but not for long. Most years, the center distributes about 20 million pounds of food, but this year, it's going to have even more. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is buying more than $1 billion worth of food from farmers who are losing sales because of the retaliatory tariffs. Those apples, cranberries, lentils, and other goods are getting redirected to food banks and other nutrition programs around the country.
So we'll get lots of chicken, lots of pork, we'll get lots of fluid milk. It's cold, let's get out of here.
Richens is the first to say this is a great thing for the 40 million Americans dealing with food insecurity. But that doesn't mean it'll be easy. His food bank is expecting to get almost 4 million more pounds of food this season from the tariff program and an unusually bountiful harvest. All of it will require extra money for transportation, fuel, and storage. Richens is seeking $350,000 in new donations to help with increased logistics costs.
Some of the food banks are worried that they might not be able to accept all of the food that might come their way because they can't afford to pay additional truck drivers, lease the trucks.
Carrie Calvert is with Feeding America, a national network of food banks. The organization estimates added distribution demands will cost food banks $300 million in all. So Feeding America is trying to help member food banks find the money. Greg Iba is Undersecretary for Marketing and Regulatory Programs at the USDA. He says there's some money the department can use, but calls this an opportunity for public-private partnerships.
We don't anticipate asking Congress for any funds to be able to accomplish our goals.
As for how long the increased supplies might last, Iba says,
we're hoping that by this time next year, when the 2019 crop is being harvested, that we won't need to talk about any additional assistance program.
But even if this program is one and done, Feeding America's Carrie Calvert says this year's spike in supplies has food banks wondering how they can keep inventories higher in the future.
We will need to actively look for ways to replace the food so that we can continue serving families in need.
But for now, groups like Dave Richens' United Food Bank are focused more on the short term. Doesn't really sound like you're too worried about this.
No, we're really worried about it. Are you kidding? This is going to be a lot of work. And the first month or two might be a little rocky, but I think we're up to the challenge.
If everything goes as planned, that could be about 3 million additional meals for this region alone. In Mesa, Arizona, I'm Brett Jaspers for Marketplace.
This final note on the way out today, it's a sad one. Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen has died. The cause was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's according to a statement from Vulcan, Allen's holding company, issued on behalf of his family. Allen left Microsoft decades ago, and in the time since has been a major philanthropist in biomedicine, exploration, also in the arts. He was a big sports guy, too, professional sports in the Seattle area. He owned the NFL Seattle Seahawks, the Seattle Sounders football club, also the Portland Trail Blazers of the NBA. Paul Allen was 65.
Testing. Okay, you can hear me. A reminder on the rules for our candidates. Candidates will have up to 90 seconds to answer each question from the members of our panel. If the panel feels it's appropriate, candidates will have 30 seconds for a rebuttal. That will not be the case for every question, just if it's appropriate in the minds of the panel. So in essence, we're looking for 90-second or less answers to our questions from the candidates. We're about 2 minutes from starting. I just need to start. Wait until 7. Let's go around the panel. If you were asked to sing a song in public, what song would you pick, Joe Trillo?
8/10%.
Probably God Bless America.
Okay. William Gilbert?
Our daily production team includes Bridget Bodner.
I don't know about that. William Gilbert, what song would you sing?
I got 3 grandchildren, and it's all
Tommy
about
Andres
Barney.
and Eliza Mills.
Okay.
Is the producer.
Governor Raimondo?
I'm Colin Risdell. We will see you tomorrow.
Okay. Mayor Fung?
You don't want me to sing. I'd clear out this whole audience.
All right. My singing voice leaves a lot to be desired as well. So we are under 2 minutes away. How about favorite restaurant? Favorite restaurant, Mayor Fung? Okay. Governor Raimondo?
That's a tough one. I think Angelo's.
William Gilbert?
Governor Francis, Warwick Ave.
Joe Trillo?
I didn't hear the question.
Joe, what's your favorite restaurant?
Oh, that's hard. I'll alienate a lot of places.
Okay.
I can't answer that question.
All right. We're about 1 minute away. Just stand by, and I'll be back with you in under 60 seconds.
To rebut anything. Is it just 90 different questions? Or?
I think so. Honestly, I have no idea because he just made it up.
It's just the way, that explanation.
Good evening and welcome to a debate among Rhode Island's top candidates for governor, sponsored by the University of Rhode Island, the Public Radio, and the Providence Journal. We're coming to you from Edwards Hall at the URI campus in Kingston. I'm Ian Donis, political reporter for the Public Radio. I'll be asking questions and moderating this debate along with Providence Journal State House reporter Patrick Anderson and URI senior Leanna Blakeman, editor-in-chief of URI's campus newspaper, The Good 5 Cent Cigar. I'm asking our audience to respect the candidates and the moderators and to please avoid applause and cheering until the very end of the debate so we can make the most of our time here. Now, I'd like to introduce the candidates. Candidates from the left, independent candidate Joe Trillo, moderate party candidate William Gilbert, Democratic nominee Governor Gina Raimondo, and Republican nominee Cranston Mayor Alan Fung. We appreciate the candidates being here. Let's get right into it. I'll ask the first questions. You will have 90 seconds to respond. Earlier today, I picked names out of a hat, and Joe Trillo, you will go first based on that drawing. Joe Trillo, a report surfaced last week about your involvement in a neighborhood dispute with a young Nicholas Mattiello in Cranston back in 1975. You were acquitted of an assault charge in that dispute, but word also surfaced of a more recent scuffle between you and another lawmaker at the State House, and you've been involved in some other disputes. Do you have the right temperament to be governor?
Well, I think there's no question I have the right temperament to be governor, especially at this time. I think we need a governor that's not afraid to go head on with the special interests that are controlling this state. And I'm that kind of guy. I'm not a laid back, easygoing guy. If you're looking for that, it's not me. But I'm the guy that's going to get in your face and I'm going to tell you, we're not going to allow you to continue to do what you've been doing, because we need to go into state government, we need to clean it up, and it's got to be cleaned up like it's never been cleaned up before, and you need a guy like me to clean it up.
William Gilbert, you could perhaps use some of the publicity that Mr. Trillo has attracted. The moderate party has not been getting a lot of recognition this year. Tell us, what are you accomplishing by running for governor this year?
Well, I want to thank everybody for having me, and this is very important real estate, so I want to use it wisely. And what I'm trying to accomplish here today is exactly what we just heard from Mr. Trillo. Well, he's a very nice guy. There's a lot of personalities there's a lot of personalities. You either push somebody away or your personality pulls people in. So,
would you please respect the discussion we're having here and not interrupt the candidates? Mr. Gilbert.
Yeah, that's fine. But what I'm trying to do is I want to talk about issues. You know, we have unfunded pension liabilities. We have problems in our education system. We have a lack of vocational training that's not attracting employers. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to get into the mud. And real estate's too valuable. Your time is too valuable to talk about issues that are 40 years old. Your issues are way too valuable to get into the name calling or the Trump's hat that Alan Fung wore. What we need to start doing so we can move the state forward is we got to start toning the rhetoric down. We got to be able to have dinner with each other and talk politics. Today at the dinner table, my girlfriend's over there. She doesn't even want to talk politics with me. This is the one place I feel safe. We can finally talk politics. We got things that we have to do. We got ideas that I want to get forward. You know what? Like access to justice is huge. You know, we got a problem in the family court where sometimes it takes 2 and 3 years for a custody issue to be decided. That's way too long for a 10-year-old not to know where they're going to live. And if we're going to have conversations about Trump behavior or Alan Fung's hat, it's just all wrong. I'm going to use this time to talk about issues. I got a bullet point of them, and I look forward to running down those issues, and hopefully you'll join me, and you'll join a different movement. You don't have to be Republican. You don't have to be Democrat. How many Democrats think we should have a balanced budget? I believe in balanced budgets. How many Republicans are pro-choice? I think we're all a mix. And what I want to try and do is I want to bring people together tonight. My name is Bill Gilbert. I'm not going to answer these questions that get in the mud. I think your time is way more valuable than that. Thank you.
Governor Raimondo, you seem to be the biggest beneficiary of Joe Trillo's presence in the race. A lot of Republicans are concerned that Joe Trillo is siphoning votes from Mayor Fung. Would voters be better served by a more direct final 3 weeks of the race focused on you and Mayor Fung if Joe Trillo dropped out?
Thank you, Ian. Thank you to URI. Thank you to the People's Radio and the Providence Journal for hosting this forum. It's great to be here, and I appreciate all the folks that have come out. I would say absolutely not. You know, Mr. Trillo has every right to run. He has a good deal of supporters. To my mind, this election is about one thing. There's a lot, as Mr. Gilbert said, there's a lot of noise. Let's cut through the noise. A few years ago, we had the highest unemployment rate in the nation, roads and bridges that were the worst in America, schools falling apart, and not even a plan or a strategy to fix it. So I became governor and brought a lot of change. Changed the way we do labor and training, completely changed our economic development strategy, changed the way we fix roads and bridges, and for the first time ever put forth a serious school construction program. And today, we have more people working in Rhode Island than at any point in our history. We have more road work going on than at any point in my lifetime and most of your lifetimes. So the question for the voters on this ballot is, do you want to continue with that change, finish the job, and keep going until every Rhode Islander has a shot at a good job? Every other man on this stage wants to undo what I've been doing and take us right back to where we came from. And I think that's the choice between me and everybody else that the voters have in November.
Mayor Fung, Republicans might not like it, but how about that point? Doesn't Joe Trill have just as much right as you to be running for governor?
Well, first of all, thank you, URI, Ian, Public Radio, and Providence Journal for having all of us on this stage today. And by the way, Bill, I'd be happy to have dinner with you anytime. I'd enjoy a spirited discussion at the dinner table because I think that's what's been missing. You know, right now, that question that you just asked me probably should have been asked to Joe because Joe, you heard what he said in the Providence Journal just this weekend, that he's out, you know, in this race, not because he wants to be governor and responsibility job, but he's trying to take away votes from me. And you heard it clearly from the governor tonight that she doesn't want him to drop out. A die's been cast, the deal's been cut. The bottom line for me is this election, Bill's right, isn't about what's going on in Washington, D.C. It's about what's going on in our backyards. And, you know, this governor has lost her way. She's focused more on out-of-state fundraising than caring about us and taking care of business. Rhode Islanders have had enough. She's had her chance for the past 4 years. Our budget has increased by close to $1 billion. And ask yourself in the audience, are we waiting less at the DMV? Are we even getting trash cans at Musquamacut Beach? Simple things that matter. My plans will put us back on the right track. I will make sure we have common sense reform, an inspector general that makes sure we root out waste and fraud and get spending back in check, but still take care of all of us.
Governor, 30 seconds.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to respond. Mayor Fung has been mayor of Cranston for twice as long as I've been governor, and what to show for it? 5 tax increases, plus car tax increases. I've cut taxes every single year I've been governor. A pension system that's 24% funded. That means people are at risk of not getting their pension. And not even did he bring about all-day kindergarten until I became governor and brought about all-day kindergarten for every child in Rhode Island. I think the choice is clear.
Time. Mayor Fung, we'll give you 30 seconds, and then we're going to move on.
You know, I got to really refute these dishonest facts, especially about the car tax. That car tax has been frozen for decades now. Had nothing to do with it. But the bottom line is, let's take a look at the governor and the lies that she's told to the pensioners, to grandma's COLA that she stole and then put it on the back end to all of her Wall Street hedge fund friends. And take a look at, you know, the real returns. She's getting it on the back end for her investments, you know, that she has in a blind trust.
Okay, that's time.
Right.
Let's move on. We're going to Patrick Anderson.
Mr. Gilbert, moving on to the issues, the tax cut that was passed in Washington earlier by the Republican Congress was a big source of debate here and elsewhere. Did you support it, and do you think it's been good for Rhode Island since passed?
I don't think the data has come in on that. You know, there was a big bounce in the stock market when the tax cut passed. I think there was a lot of enthusiasm with the change in guard. Just recently, the stock market started turning the other way. So tax policy is one of the levers. It's one of the levers that the government throws. You know, we throw a lever one way to change the economy. We throw the lever the other way to change the economy. We can make it go up. We can make it go down. I'm not sure I really believe in my politics that we should be playing so much with the economy. I think small business people are the best choice for that. I haven't filed my taxes this year. I don't know how it's going to affect me. I don't know if anybody's filed their taxes. So how does it really affect you? You know, if you're doing a 1040 EZ form, I think you probably got to bounce. You know, you got Amgen. I know there's a dispute that Mrs. Raimondo will say Amgen came here because of her laurels, or some people would say it was because of Amgen's just a great company and they wanted to expand. I think it's bad policy for the government to think they create jobs. I think the government can either put a brake on or they can accelerate, but it's the companies that break jobs. They're the one that brings the jobs. So I think the jury's out on that tax cut. Right now, I don't think we have a money problem. I think we have a spending problem. I think we just need to move the chairs around a little bit. Before I even cut spending, I would want to move the chairs around a little bit.
Governor Raimondo, you opposed that bill in Washington, but since then, state revenues have been up, and it appears to have really helped balance the state budget. Were you wrong at all in your assessment of it?
No, I didn't support it then, and I don't support it now. Rhode Island's economy was on the move long before federal tax policy. And by the way, we're doing better than our neighbors. You know, this isn't just the case. When I became governor in 2014, and the whole time I campaigned in 2013, most of the rest of the country was out of the recession. Our economy was the worst in America, #1 unemployment rate. So I disagree with Mr. Gilbert. Our progress hasn't been by accident. It's because we've been investing in job training, rebuilding our infrastructure, making it easier to do business, helping small businesses, cutting regulations. Those are all things we've done under my leadership. And as a result, last year, Rhode Island in 2017 had the highest wage growth in the country. So we're not just keeping up with America. We were #1 last year. And that's because of the choices we've made, the changes we've made, and the investments that we're making in our people.
And Mayor Fung, do you think the governor is selling the tax plan short?
First of all, I think the governor's, playing around with a lot of rankings, because when you take a look at CNBC, and that's not some hardcore right-wing organization, they have us 5th from the bottom in business friendliness. We're still one of the lowest as far as tax-friendly policies. There's a lot more that we can do. And when you're seeing our license plates over across the border in Massachusetts, that's not an economy we should be proud of. There needs to be a lot more to be done. And yes, those tax cuts have helped Spirit. We've seen companies in Rhode Island, CVS, take advantage of those tax cuts and reinvest it in more jobs. We've seen other companies in Rhode Island and across the country give back some of those dollars to hard-working employees through bonuses or increased wages. It works, and that's my policy to reform Rhode Island. Cutting taxes, cutting our high sales tax, that's 7 down to 5 over the first 4 years of my administration. Cutting fees that small businesses in particular pay, and many of you as professionals pay. We need a dramatic change from the governor's corporate welfare policy that shells out millions to the big guys, GE, Johnson & Johnson, for a few jobs. We deserve better, and it will happen under my administration.
May I respond?
Yes, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Mayor, to the audience who you've just said you're going to cut taxes, I would say buyer beware, because that is not his record. He's consistently over and over and over and over increased property taxes in the city of Cranston. The state designates something called a distressed city. Cranston was not a distressed city when he became mayor. It has since become a distressed city. What is distressed city? It's cities that are so highly taxed relative to the income of the residents that we call it distressed, and they receive a great deal more state aid. So it's laughable to think that as governor you'll cut taxes when all you've done is raise taxes on working people as mayor.
Mayor, 30 seconds.
Governor,
Please.
You can't even be honest about that designation because it's all defined by state statute. It has nothing to do with increases in taxes. And by the way, you've raised taxes in every single one of your budget. You haven't found a single item, from seasonal vacation rentals, cigarettes, tolls that are going to be passed on to all of us. That's your record, 4 straight budgets that have put it back on our backs as consumers, but most importantly, on small business back. You're strangling many of them. And small businesses are 90% of our state's
Mayor, your
economy.
time's up. And Mr. Trilla, were those tax cuts worth the $10 trillion?
Good to see you. Thanks for getting me in this debate. You going to turn my mic on too?
I'm asking you, what were they worth it?
Huh? Were they worth what? I didn't hear you.
The $10 trillion estimated cost.
I can't hear you again because they...
Please, audience, would you please hold your comments?
Were the tax cuts worth it?
The tax cuts were definitely worth it. If it weren't for the tax cuts, Rhode Island wouldn't be anywhere near in the shape that it's in right now. And you can thank the Trump administration for all of the tax cuts. The bottom,
Can we, audience, please,
the bottom
please?
line is, when I'm governor, I want to reduce taxes in this state. I want to stop the people from being overtaxed that are leaving the state. You know, we have an estate tax in Rhode Island, and every year that estate tax is driving more and more people out. So we've gone down from about $80 million in income, that in the next 5 years we're going to be at about $30 million in income because the people are leaving the state. And these politicians that are in office don't know anything about cutting taxes. I've been a businessman all my life. I know businesses. I know how to balance a budget. These two, and I'm referring to Gina Raimondo and Alan Fung. Alan Fung is raised his budget 26%. Gina Raimondo's raised the state budget 23%. This is driving people out. We're becoming a poverty state, and the only people that are coming into this state right now are people that are looking to be taken care of. And they're coming in with their hands out. And I'm all about taking care of people. But there's a point that you reach where enough is enough. We went from 20% of the people needing to be taken care of. We're up to 30%
Mr. Trillo,
now.
your time is up. We're gonna move on to our next question from University of Rhode Island senior Leanna Blakeman.
Governor Mundo, you'll be the first to answer this question. How are you planning on making higher education more accessible across the state schools, such as at CCRI, RIC, and URI?
Thank you for your question. As you know, this is a priority of mine. I will say for me it's personal because I've been able to have my opportunities because I had a college degree and my father went to college, the first guy in our family to go to college on the GI Bill. The United States government paid for him to go to college, and it changed his life and my whole family's life forever. And that's why last year I brought about the Rhode Island Promise program, which has been a huge success. That has allowed students to go to CCRI for 2 years, tuition free. We've seen record-breaking results, 43% increase in enrollment, 3 times as many students on path to graduate on time, and particular benefits for poorer kids and kids of color. I'd like to do the same thing at Rhode Island College and URI. The other thing that I've done as governor is we've made it so that every high school student can take college classes for college credit for free. And I was out at one point in time, and a woman came up to me and she said, Governor Raimondo, you saved me $70,000. I said, really? How did I do that? And she said, I have twins. And when you announced that program, I told both of my kids, you have to take as many college classes in high school as possible for free, and each of those kids had gotten about a year or more of college under their belt. So the bottom line is, in today's economy, you need some degree past high school, whether it's a credential or a college degree, to get a job. The hardest part of college shouldn't be paying for it, and we have to keep knocking down those barriers so every kid can have the opportunities that I've had and that you have.
Same question to you, Mayor Fung. How would you expand access to higher education in Rhode Island?
Well, first I would need to strengthen a lot of our K through 12 educational system first and invest a lot more dollars. You know, we have a lot of children that are struggling with the basics with reading and the arithmetic. We have to set that solid foundation from K through 3. You know, one of the things that I want to invest more in is in the STEM education field. There's a lot of good paying careers out there with engineering. You know, many students are here at URI thanks to the robotics programs that are going on in Aquidneck Island, which, you know, I gotta brag, you know, my in-laws have been part of for generations now. We've got to do more to invigorate the younger kids to follow a good career pathway. Invest a lot more in career and tech. Even if you have regional centers, like what's going on with the programs at Cranston West's Career and Tech Center, up at Ponegantsit, also down in Westerly. If we keep these regional centers, you're providing the appropriate skill sets for the children to be ready for the careers of the future. And getting to higher education, once they're done with high school and they're ready, prepared for the basics, then they have that choice. Because not everyone has that ability to go to college. You know, there are good paying jobs for plumbers, electricians. My brother-in-law is an electrician. There's good pay out there. We have to do more. And for URI, you guys should be treated as the flagship university. I said this 4 years ago. For the little dollars that you get, you should have your own board of governance here. Make your own decisions. Cut the cord in the future when you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. Trillo, how would you answer that question? How are you planning on making higher education more accessible for students in the state?
Well, before we can start talking about giving away more free college education, I think what we need to do is make sure that the kids we're sending into programs are capable of handling the college programs that they're going in. And what I would do is put a few more restrictions on them. I would try to keep the program. But I think what we really need to do is begin to look at where we can save money. Governor Raimondo has lost $635 million of taxpayer money with the UHIP crisis. She's lost another $500 million of pension money with her pension investments when she was treasurer. And she's benefited by getting millions and millions of dollars raised for her by the very people that that have contributed to her and that she's given business to, like the people that support the UHIP computer program. The bottom line is, and Alan is just as bad because he's raised about $1 million, all of which the majority of the big donors are coming from all the lobbyists that can control the state. Those are the people who are affecting you, the average taxpayers in this state. So before we can do more with education, and we can do more to change things and upgrade stuff, we need to get everybody out of the back pocket of state government. You can't do that by electing people like those two that are bought and paid for by the lobbyists.
That's time, Mr. Trillo.
And then finally, Mr. Gilbert, how would you make college education more accessible for URI?
Well, thank you for asking. I think education is probably the biggest issue that we can do in Rhode Island right now. I really think if we took our education programs and coupled them as an economic engine, we can kill two birds with one stone. I want to start exporting high quality, high value employees. And if I create enough high value employees, the businesses are going to come also. We got a great place to live. I don't live here by accident. You know, I could live anywhere I want, but I live here just on purpose. I love the beaches. I love the coastline. I love everything about it. But I tell you right now, we have a nurse problem. We have a nurse shortage. If you look at URI, you look at CCRI, and you look at RIC, you have a higher standard to get into the nursing program than you do just the university. We can expand those programs and get some nurses, and we can increase education. I think education, we need to talk about parity. Before I start increasing a bubble over here, I got to get some parity between some of our school districts because Rhode Island doesn't work for everybody. It works for a lot of people. And I know Mr. Trillo doesn't like to hear that, but there are people that it doesn't work for. We need full-day kindergarten. That's something I want to push for. I think at least pre-K for all Title I schools. That's a place because we do. We have to get that education level where there's third grade, there's fifth grade, they feed onto the eighth grade. But then we got to get into the vocational trades. We need to think big, and we need to start pumping out electricians, plumbers, plasterers, heating and air conditioning guys. These are all retiring. We have no bench right now. In 3 years,
Mr. Gilbert,
we're in
time.
trouble.
You're listening to a live gubernatorial debate at the University of Rhode Island. I'm Ian Donis, political reporter for the Public's Radio, joined by Providence Journal State House reporter Patrick Anderson and University of Rhode Island student journalist Leanna Blakeman. Next question, we will start with Mayor Fung. Mayor Fung, most of you have campaigned very negatively at times during this race for governor. Do you believe the people of Rhode Island are helped by this kind of campaigning? And if not, what concrete steps would you support to scale that back in the future?
Well, let me push back on you there, Ian, because the only negative ads that I've been seeing have been directed at my way. I've been taken out in body blows.
Well, supporters of both you and Governor Raimondo have aired some negative ads.
I'm not here to debate you, Ian, but if you can allow me to respond, please.
Please.
But what I can tell you is, you take a look at my commercials. What I'm talking about, the most recent one, is about change. It talks about my record in Cranston. Talks about the businesses, the small business owners that I've helped open their doors, cutting through the red tape, without the corporate welfare culture that the governor loves to subscribe to. Garden City and Chapel View are flourishing. That's what I've been talking about. because we need new leadership that's different from the approach that has not been working for the past 4 years under this governor. And we will bring that from day one. We are going to make sure that the ads that I'm putting out, from whether it was the change ad talking about my business plans, to even the reforms, the government reforms from Inspector General, to making sure that there's stronger work requirements for able-bodied individuals on welfare, you know, cutting down fraud and abuse in our system. That's how we're going to save the dollars to afford the tax cuts that I've been talking about, unlike what the governor's doing. Almost $1 billion have been, you know, increased in our state budget, and you cannot tell me that you're not better for it today, because I can tell you the $640 million that's been wasted at UHIP, all those kids that have been hurt at DCYF.
Let me stop you there, Mayor Fung. Joe Trillo, are Rhode Islanders well served by negative campaigning? And if not, what would you do about it if elected governor?
Well, I haven't done any negative commercials, so I don't believe in negative commercials. I believe in pointing out the negatives about your opponents. I think you need to do that as long as it's fair game. And in this particular case, you got a guy like Alan Fung bragging about how great the city of Cranston is. In 1 minute, he's telling you that he's got a $30 million surplus, but he's got potholes big enough for a bus to fall in, but he keeps his $20 million surplus. The schools are falling apart, and again, he's got his $20 million surplus. He brags about Garden City and Chapel View. Those two developments would have existed with him as mayor or with anybody else. So in terms of how I disagree with the governor, she's running a sanctuary state of Rhode Island. She's turned it into the city of Providence is operating under the state of Rhode Island is operating under the same rules. We're not turning over criminal, illegal immigrants to ICE agents. I think it's a big mistake. All we're doing under Governor Raimondo is trying to buy people that need to be taken care of, giving them more and giving them more incentive to come into the state. You know, I think there's a lot of things that need to be done. I'm going to go over that hopefully later, but regulations are killing the state. Our infrastructure's falling apart. And what are we doing? We're repaving parts of 95.
That's time, Mr. Trillo.
That are already in good shape.
William Gilbert, you have not offered any negative advertising, but you're a real political outsider here. What can people like you do to decrease negative advertising in Rhode Island politics?
I want to be the only adult in the room.
But you're saying that right now, but as a practical matter going forward...
Well, yeah, as a practical matter, I look forward to that because I think the negative advertising is one of the reasons why half of the people don't want to participate in politics. It's why half the people don't even want to get in politics. You start running, they start bringing up your past. It's nuts, right? But let's talk about the other half of the people that don't participate in politics. They don't trust anybody. They don't think it matters. It doesn't matter if I get involved. Look, our audience is only half full. This is important. This is our country. This is how we run the place. Yeah, the African Americans too, man. I'm with you. Right? I was bused to an inner city. I get it. Brown versus education. I'm with you, man. Right? I talk about Brown Lives Matter.
Can we please hold off on the audience comments?
The issue that we're going to have, if we're not able to talk and have these conversations, we're never going to get anywhere. How many people think politics is better than 10 years ago? It's worse. We got to be able to sit down at dinner, where I go to Governor Francis with my girl over there, and I want to be able to talk politics with her so I can talk about pre-K. I want to talk about vocational education. I want to talk about doubling the number of Supreme Court justices so we can have access to justice. It takes too long, right? I want to get universal health care so we can get the employers to stop paying for health care. Healthcare it's crazy all the time.
Mr. Gilbert,
employers spend.
Your time is up. Let's go to Governor Raimondo. You heard what Mayor Fung said. How do you respond to what he says? And is Rhode Island well served by negative campaigning? What would you do if reelected to try and reduce that?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I don't like the negative ads either. They're distorting my record as well. I think, though, this is about contrast, and there is a clear choice. I do want to respond to various of the attacks that have come my way in the past few minutes. First, as it relates to the charge of corporate welfare, this is not corporate welfare. I came in to a commerce department whose strategy was 38 studios. And I was determined to change that. So we put in place best practices, the same programs Massachusetts, New York, and all of our neighbors have used. And by the way, they're working. That one program that Mayor Fung referred to has created 10,000 jobs, average salary $65,000 a year. If he's elected governor and he undoes that program, thousands of Rhode Islanders will be out of a job. That's risk, and the stakes are high. As to the pension, when I became treasurer, we had one of the worst funded pension systems in America. And it's a tough issue. I didn't shy away from it. I brought everybody together, and we passed a historic reform. I'm also the first treasurer in history to say, I will not take campaign contributions from those that do investments with the pension fund. And I instituted a pledge. They had to sign an affidavit before they did business with us that they would not give me money. In contrast, the pension system in Cranston, 24% funded, no plan to fix it.
Mr. Trillo,
Let's go to Mayor Fung, 30 seconds, and then we're moving on.
You know, first of all, I remember back in 2014, Governor, you sat in one of these debates and promised, just like I did, an independent outside investigation for 38 studios, and you broke that promise. And Carl was there. Carl was the only one that was courageous enough on that commerce to vote against that 38 studios. But let's talk about pension plans. You know I actually did reform sitting across the table. And that 24%, that came up from 16. But I did the hard work negotiating with retirees, our police and fire unions to get that back up, and I'm investing it the right way. And every dollar, my employees know that every dollar is going back to them and meeting our objective goals, unlike you, where the backdoor fees are going to your Wall Street hedge fund friends.
It is true that 24%.
30 seconds. Governor, 30 seconds.
It is true that 24% funded is better than 16. It is not stable, it is not fixed, and the mayor does not have a track record of bringing people together and solving problems. As it relates to 38 studios, I'm the only one on this stage who cautioned against 38 studios. The mayor's plan was to get the company to come to Cranston.
Absolutely not.
Mr. Trillo, you just mentioned illegal immigration. As governor, are you going to try to deputize local law enforcement or the state police to try to enforce federal immigration law?
No, that's not the plan. The plan is only to adhere to federal law. And in the case of this governor, right now there's a mandate that if the state police or the prisons release a criminal, an illegal criminal, they're not to call ICE agents and turn the people over to ICE agents. This is putting the whole community at risk right now, and I would not continue that policy. I would have turned them over to the ICE agents. But what's been going on in this state in a whole bunch of places we're not even talking about, like the over-regulations that are killing our businesses. I've been a small businessman all my life. What I want to do is I want to start a business program that's going to allow entrepreneurs to get started that just have an idea, that can't borrow money. Small loans, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 loans, economic opportunity loans that we can lend out to hundreds of small business people to start incubator companies all over the state. That will produce jobs. Those companies will grow into bigger and better jobs. I started
Mr. Trillo,
a company that I
back
sold.
to the immigration question. Would you do anything to incentivize or force local law enforcement to also work with ICE?
The problem with local law enforcement right now in most of the cities and towns, including Alan Fung's town, is they're all operating under this Community Policing Act, which is what the city of Providence is operating under. They have all the parameters. You can't stop a car unless you do a full report on the person that you stop it. If you can't ask anybody else in the car for identification. You can't arrest people. I mean, some of the stuff that's going on right now, and they have to fill out a full report every time they have an interaction with the public.
Mr. Gilbert, what would you do or not do to change how immigration enforcement happens in Rhode Island?
Trying to put the genie back in the bottle is pretty impossible. Trying to put the bullet back in the gun is pretty impossible. We've had an immigration issue Some people would say issue, some people would say it's just life on earth, where we get together and people come in. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I know all the negativity. We'll never get to the answers. I know that there's people that lived here their whole lives because their parents brought them here, and they don't have a green card. Should they not work? Are we going to send 2 million back if we lock them all up? I don't want crime any more than anybody else. I really don't. But these are some serious issues, and we're not going to solve them between commercials tonight. The only way we're going to solve them is if we get together. So I don't know. I don't like the kids down in Texas being stripped away from their parents. But I also don't want illegal competition. You know, how can you say you're for a $15 an hour minimum wage, but then you want the illegal guy not to go over there and have E-Verify? Everything's connected in our lives, and if we don't start acting like it, we're never going to go anywhere. I want to talk about the taxes like everybody else. I want to talk about that trust issue, because when Gina was talking about the pension fund, people don't trust the government. They worked their whole lives, and she yanked the pension out from underneath them that were promised for 35 years. It's not about balancing the budget. Some things are about trust, and some things we have to pay for. We have a social contract with our employees, we need to pay them. If we have somebody in our school systems, we need to educate them.
And time's up, Mr. Gilbert. Governor Raimondo, Mr. Trillo suggested that your administration is preventing state police from working with federal officials. Is that true? And what do you do to direct the state police on immigration?
Yeah, thank you. That is not true. We follow the law, and we follow the United States Constitution. And Mr. Trillo and Mayor Fung are trying to politicize this issue to scare people, and it's not right, and they ought to quit it. Here's the reality. Courts have held that the state police, or any police, cannot hold somebody without a warrant. I agree with Mr. Gilbert. If you're in this country and you're undocumented and you commit a crime, you ought to do your sentence and you ought to be deported. But it is not the state police's job to do that. That's ICE's job. And we all know ICE is a mess and needs to be fixed. We also all know the immigration system is broken. And Congress needs to get its act together, take action, and fundamentally reform immigration. But in the meantime, what I want the people of Rhode Island to know, and to not be scared, is that we follow the law, we follow the Constitution. The Rhode Island State Police are terrific, and they're keeping Rhode Islanders safe.
And Mr. Fung, you have said that you want to prevent Rhode Island from being a sanctuary state. Practically, in policy terms, how would you as a governor do that?
Well, first and foremost, I'm the only one on this stage that signed that order with the Department of Justice so that the Cranston Police will cooperate when they have a criminal in their detention that's illegal.
Mr. Fung, did that change anything from policy?
Let me just finish, please, because that's the main distinction between what the governor said and even what Mr. Trillo said, because he certainly doesn't understand what community policing is about. Maybe you should ask his son-in-law, who's standing in the back, what it really means. Because the bottom line for this is he's a police officer in the Cranston Police Department, so he knows what community policing is. But the bottom line is this: the governor's wrong about the state police. The prime example is what happened with Mr. De Los Santos, a convicted drug dealer who was in the ACI for a couple years serving a sentence, who was an illegal, who was let out and ended up committing more crimes, contributing back into that opioid crisis that we have in our state. I would order the state police and sign that agreement with the Department of Justice, because it also is important for federal funds that comes not only to the state, but to local municipalities and police departments as well. So that's how we're going to do it. And what I'm also going to do, incentivize cities and towns to move away from sanctuary cities and towns, because that's not right. If they're not going to cooperate and throwing a middle finger at federal funds, well, then they're probably operating with enough money that on the state level, we're not going to be able to give them any additional aid too.
May I respond to that? Because again, I don't want Rhode Islanders to be scared. The man he referenced, De Los Santos, was in prison and was released. ICE should have been waiting in the parking lot of the ACI and deported him. But they didn't. That's their job. and they should have done that. He should have served his sentence and been deported. And again, stop politicizing public safety. It's wrong, and it scares people.
Please hold off on the applause.
And the big question on that front is whether or not your departments, Department of Correction, State Police, or anyone cooperated and notified ICE.
Absolutely,
That's the big
they
key.
did.
We're gonna-
Every single
we're gonna
time
move- we're gonna
somebody's
move on.
charged,
Governor, we're gonna move on.
You take fingerprints, and they go into the system, and ICE has access
All right,
to that.
we're going to move on. We're going to a lightning round of questions. I'm looking for yes or no answers to the questions, starting with William Gilbert. Do you support Providence Mayor Jorge Alorza's proposal to bail out the city's pension fund by monetizing the city's water supply?
No, I don't believe it's the city's water supply.
Okay, it's a yes or no answer, please. So no. Okay, Governor Raimondo.
These are not yes or no, maybe. I mean,
Mayor
it's a
Fung.
big issue.
It's a giant tax increase on all the ratepayers, no.
Joe Trillo.
No, and he doesn't have the right to sell that water supply.
Let's stay with Joe Trillo. If the General Assembly passed a law to strengthen abortion rights in Rhode Island and you were governor, would you support that?
At this point, I would support only those laws that are federal government laws. That's what I would support.
William Gilbert, same question.
Yeah, I think they should have done it as soon as Trump got in office.
Governor Raimondo.
I think we need to codify Roe v. Wade in state statute.
Mayor Fung. Please hold off on the applause.
I'm sorry, same question?
Yes.
I would not support the HRCA because I believe it goes beyond and codifies late-term abortions, which I don't support.
Let's stay with Mayor Fung here. Do you support Nicholas Mattiello continuing as Speaker of the Rhode Island House?
Well, I'm supporting Steve Fry as the Republican candidate. I
So
think
that's
the
a no.
state needs to be shaken up.
Governor Raimondo?
That's up to his colleagues.
Sorry?
That's up to his colleagues. They
What do
vote
you
for him.
think?
I am supporting him in his reelection.
William Gilbert?
No.
And Joe Trillo?
That's, the Speaker of the House is elected by the House of Representatives.
What do you
Let them
think, Joe?
make that decision.
Joe Trillo, let's stay with you. If you win office as governor, will you commit to creating an office of Inspector General in 2019?
Absolutely. That would be one of the first things I would do is create, by executive order, an Office of Inspector General. The job of that office would be to go into government and root out waste and fraud.
Okay, we've got it. Thank you.
And Arlene Violet has agreed to serve and to put that together for me.
William Gilbert, would you create an Office of Inspector General?
I would do that. I'll also create a white-collar crime unit because, that's sometimes more dangerous than people stealing from Walmart.
Governor Raimondo?
I'm open to it, but I'm not convinced we need it.
Mayor Fung?
We absolutely need it. We've seen a lot of wasted dollars go out. $648 million for UHIP. That's unconscionable.
And still, yes or no answers, Mr. Trillo. The last phase of the car tax cut will cost over $220 million. If elected, do you commit to supporting total elimination of the car tax?
I do commit to supporting the elimination of the car tax, yes.
And Mr. Gilbert?
I would do it and I'd accelerate it in the first year.
And Governor Raimondo?
Yes.
Mayor Fung?
Yes, I would continue to phase out.
Medicaid is a huge part of the state budget. Should Rhode Islanders on Medicaid be asked to pay copays? That's to Mayor Fung first.
No, we've got a large, my reforms would focus on welfare benefits and IDs for EBT cards to prevent that fraud and waste.
Joe Trillo.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Should Medicaid recipients pay copays?
It depends on what level that the person is receiving the Medicare benefit.
Mr. Gilbert.
I think there needs to be an asset and a means test.
And Governor Raimondo.
Most other states do it, and I would be open to it in certain circumstances.
Take that as a yes. And this next one starts with you, Governor Raimondo. Should professional athletes be allowed to kneel during the national anthem?
I would stand, but yes, they should be allowed to.
Mayor Fung.
I don't agree with, not standing with the national anthem.
Mr. Trillo.
They should absolutely stand for the national anthem.
And William Gilbert.
I believe in personal liberties. They're fine doing what they want to do.
And please hold it. And starting with you, Mr. Gilbert, if elected, would you cut the state sales tax?
I would yes, to 5%.
5%. Governor Raimondo.
Probably not.
Mayor Fung.
Thanks, Bill, for agreeing with my plan.
I published mine first.
I had it last time, don't worry, 4 years ago.
Mayor Fung, I'll take that as a yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And Joe Trillo.
I would definitely cut the sales tax, yes.
And that's it for the lightning round.
All right, we're going to go to URI Senior Leanna Blakeman for another question. We're short on time before closing statements, so please limit your responses to 30 seconds.
First to you, Mayor Fung. Since Rhode Island is a coastal state and will see many effects from the recent UN report, how will you as governor work towards protecting the Rhode Island coastline and water ecosystems?
You know, one of the things that we really have to continue, first of all, is support that bond, question number 3. You know, I will be voting yes on it because it would provide additional dollars into our economies to preserve our waterways, help make sure that a lot of our sewer treatment facilities are, you know, up to date and, you know, not discharging any pollutions. I've done a lot of that, support renewable energies like in Cranston, but it's got to be a lot of local controls. That's how we're going to continue to protect our environment.
Thank you. What about you, Mr. Trillo?
I didn't hear the question.
How will you...
Everything is very muffled. I'm just getting a muffled sound.
How will you protect the Rhode Island coastline and water ecosystems?
I still didn't hear it because people were talking.
How will you help protect the Rhode Island coastline and water ecosystems?
I'm not hearing the question. I'm sorry. How would I tax the eco water system? I'm not getting the question.
How will you help protect the Rhode Island coastline and the Rhode Island water ecosystems?
Okay, I've already done that with some of the legislation I've passed. One of them was the Clean Water Act that required all boats that have toilets in them to have holding facilities. So that was one of the things. We want to make sure that our bay is maintained and kept clean. And at this point in time, the bay is the cleanest that it's been in many, many years. So we're encouraging oyster fishing and quahogging.
We need to stop you there, Mr. Trillo. Same question to you, Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you. This is a neat one for me because I want to use innovation. I want to use engineering. Right now, one of the things that we're doing is a lot of our sewer systems, like in East Greenwich, for example, along the bay, we're doing what they call point discharge. We're discharging water right into the bay. Albeit it's clean, it's been filtered, but it's changing the temperature at that discharge point. I think one of the things that we could do is what other states have done is we can look at gray water systems where that water goes back.
Mr. Gilbert, we need to stop you there.
Yards. So I want to use technology.
Governor Raimondo.
We need to do everything we can. We're the ocean state. We all grew up going to the beach. We prize it. The bay is cleaner than it's been in decades. Since I've been governor, I've proposed 2 bonds. The proceeds of both will be used for cleaner water, stormwater, resiliency. We also have a statewide resiliency plan to make sure that we're proactive and constantly protecting our coastline.
All right, candidates, it's time for your 2-minute closing statements. Let's start with Cranston Mayor Alan Fung.
You know, first of all, thank you, URI, thank you, Public Radio, and thank you, Providence Journal, for having all of us in this healthy debate tonight. My fellow Rhode Islanders, this election for governor isn't about what's going on in Washington, D.C. It's about what's going on in our own backyards, you know, from Narragansett, North Providence to Newport. And one thing that we all know is that Governor Raimondo has hurt many in the middle class with their policies and many of our most vulnerable. You know, we talked a lot about UHIP. If she only cared as much about the people waiting in line for their UHIP benefits as she did for those waiting in line for her out-of-state fundraisers, maybe we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in. She only cared about job qualifications and didn't hire the former executive director of the Democratic Party who had no health care experience or IT experience to launch the now infamous URI system, maybe we'd be in a better place. And if only she cared about competence, she wouldn't have hired someone with no qualifications for the job at DCYF. You know, every department is in trouble in state government right now, and it's burning. And Governor Raimondo is out on the West Coast fundraising. Rhode Islanders have had enough. She's had 4 years, and it isn't working. We need fundamental change, and we need it now. My plans will put Rhode Island back on the right track immediately. I'll keep our kids safe in our schools. I'll make common sense reforms like tougher work requirements for able-bodied individuals on welfare, and we'll have an Office of Inspector General to cut out waste and fraud. I'll make this a Rhode Island that we can all be proud of. And yes, I, as the boy that grew up in South Providence, like many of you, washed dishes in his family's restaurant and worked nights to pay off for colleges like many of the students, I am humbly asking for your vote, because we deserve better.
Please hold your applause until the end. Governor Raimondo, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you all for coming here tonight. It's a privilege and honor to be your governor, and I've worked hard every single day for the past 4 years for the people of Rhode Island to bring about opportunity for the people of Rhode Island. When I started 4 years ago, we had one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. We had the worst roads and bridges in America. Some of our bridges were held up by Lincoln logs. We hadn't made any investment in rebuilding our schools in decades. And by the way, the schools show it. You walk in the front door on a rainy day and there's a trash can catching the water. Our kids deserve better, our teachers deserve better. Our economic development programs were in shatters, and our strategy for job training was to train and pray they get a job. All of that added up to people starting to lose hope. So we got to work. We rolled up our sleeves, and we started the hard work of bringing about change, put in place a new strategy for commerce. As a result, forget about the rankings, look at the facts. We have the lowest unemployment rate that we've had in almost 20 years. We have more jobs now in Rhode Island than at any point in our history. We're fixing more roads and bridges than ever before, and we have a sustainable plan to fund it. We've gotten back into the business of rebuilding our schools and putting people to work. And our new job training programs have trained over 3,000 people. I've talked to these people. These are Rhode Islanders. These are our friends and family and neighbors. I talk to them. You know what they say? They say, I was stuck in a dead-end job, and I got a training program, and now I have a good job. My opponents oppose this. They oppose roadworks. They oppose the new commerce programs. They oppose the Promise program. So if you go with them, we're going back to the days of broken down roads and bridges and sky-high unemployment. And none of them has the courage to stand up to President Trump. So I'm asking you for your support,
Governor.
and I'm asking you for a chance to finish the job we started.
William Gilbert, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Again, thank you for having me. Again, I take this serious. I think it's important. I love our state. This is the only one of the places I know where I can go to a 300-year-old restaurant in Newport, and I can walk across the street and see a $300 million yacht. This place is fantastic. We can do a lot of cool things. Some of the things that I want to do is I talked about communication. I want to be known as the communication state. I want to be the first state in the country that has access to wireless internet for free for everybody on the state servers. I think that's a goal that we can achieve. I think information, and everybody has their phone in their pocket, we're connected, and we need to ensure that people are for that parity. I think that's important. I think we need to have a model teacher contract for teachers and first responders. There's a lot of different policies and procedures that the state can bring to bear and bring those statewide teacher contracts so that we know what to negotiate, we know how to negotiate, and we don't have a bus strike like we're having now. We can bring some professionalism to that. I want to eliminate the legislative grants. I want to do term limits. Not because I want people to get thrown out of office, but I want new ideas. And I think sometimes we have to change the playing field, the spirit of rotation, as we call it, right? I want to increase the small claims court to $20,000. Again, access to justice. Right now, it's a low limit. You can't go in there. I also want to have cases of equity heard. Those are restraining orders, TROs, things like that. You shouldn't have to be a lawyer. You shouldn't have to empty all your pockets because you got ripped off at the car dealer. You should be able to take care of those things yourself, right? So therefore, I think we want to sell or lease the convention center. It's not producing the money that we need. It's a $45 to $50 million boondoggle. I think there's some money there, and I think a private enterprise could bring some really neat stuff to that convention center. But most of all, a lot of people say this is a fait accompli. Gina's going to get elected. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change minds and I'm trying to build a future. I'm trying to give people a voice. No more negativity. Let's get the resumes lined up with the jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Joe Trillo, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
You know, I think I want to make it clear that I chose to run as an independent for two big reasons. One is that both parties are totally dysfunctional. If you don't believe me, watch MSNBC for 2 hours and then switch to Fox News. And what you see tonight on this stage is the same exact reason I chose to run as an independent. I believe the only way you're going to get things done in this state is by being an independent voice and not being obligated to follow the party. If I'm elected as governor, what I want to do is I want to reduce taxes. I want to make us a more competitive state. I want to change the way the outside world looks at Rhode Island. Right now, they look at us as a shanty state, and they don't want to come here unless we buy them to come. And that's exactly what Governor Raimondo has been doing, and that's got to stop. And the only way we're going to stop it, I've been a businessman all my life, is we got to stop killing businesses. And we're doing that every day because we're so overloaded with regulations. Our infrastructure is falling apart. So what are we doing? We're repaving areas of 95 that don't need to be repaved when we have the local city and town roads that are a disaster. We've got to put money into the local city and towns too. We just can't simply do the Route 95 in areas where it doesn't need to be done. I want to untie the hands of our police. I want to shrink government through efficiency, and I want to strengthen the law on animal abuse. For too long, people are getting away with abusing animals and walking away with no ramifications. I put my own money in this race, and make no mistake about it, I got in it to win it. That's why I'm in it, because I can change the direction of the state and I can make it work for all the people because I'm not bought and paid for by the lobbyists.
Time, Mr. Trillo. I'd like to, excuse me. I'd like to thank the University of Rhode Island for co-sponsoring and hosting this debate. I'd like to thank the Providence Journal for also sponsoring this debate, and my colleagues at the Publix Radio. Thanks to co-panelists Patrick Anderson from the Providence Journal and Leanna Blakeman from the Good 5 Cent Cigar. And thank you very much to the candidates, Independent Joe Trillo, Moderate William Gilbert, Governor Democrat Gina Raimondo, and Republican Alan Fung. Now you can give them a big hand. Ami Andonis.